Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into a topic that's reshaping how enterprises across Northern Europe are thinking about artificial intelligence, agentic AI and multi-agent orchestration. And we're looking at it through a really specific lens, Helsinki's Readiness for 2026. Sam, this isn't just another AI buzzword conversation, is it?
Absolutely not. What's fascinating is that Helsinki, and Finnish enterprises in general, have moved well beyond the chatbot phase. We're talking about a fundamental shift from isolated AI models to coordinated ecosystems of agents working together. That's a completely different beast, and it requires different thinking architecturally.
So when you say coordinated ecosystems, what does that actually look like in practice? Because I think a lot of our listeners probably still think about AI as a single tool doing one thing.
Great question. Imagine you're a financial services firm processing loan applications. Instead of one chatbot collecting information, you now have specialized agents. One handles document verification, another assesses credit risk, a third coordinates with compliance checks. They hand off tasks to each other, aggregate results, and minimal human intervention is needed. McKinsey's data shows these orchestrated workflows outperform isolated agents by 34 to 47% across accuracy, cost per task, and speed.
That's a significant gap. And we're seeing this not just as theory, but as actual enterprise behavior. Gartner reported that 78% of companies piloting multi-agent systems in 2025 plan full production deployment by mid-2026. That's not a small pilot anymore. That's a commitment.
Exactly. But here's what separates the winners from the ones burning budget: architecture. Organizations that jump straight to tools like OpenClaw or similar platforms without clear domain mapping and orchestration logic end up building solutions to problems they never defined. That's where the expensive failures happen.
So architecture comes before tool selection. That's a fundamental insight that I think challenges how a lot of enterprise IT teams approach this. Can you walk us through what that architecture actually looks like?
Absolutely. We're talking about what's called an agent mesh architecture, and it has 4 key layers. First, you've got specialized agents. These are domain-specific models, retrieval augmented generation systems, or LLM-based workers tailored to specific tasks. Second is the orchestration layer. Think of this as the conductor managing which agent handles what, when they hand off work, and how results combine.
That orchestration layer sounds critical. What happens if that's poorly designed?
Chaos, essentially. You get agents stepping on each other's work, duplicate efforts, missing context, and exploding costs. The orchestration layer needs to understand task dependencies, agent capabilities, and when to escalate to human judgment. Third layer is context: shared knowledge bases, vector databases, and MCP servers that give agents access to current, accurate information. Without this, agents make decisions in a vacuum.
MCP servers, Model Context Protocol, that's becoming a standard way for agents to access external data, right?
Precisely. MCP is foundational for production reliability. If your agents can't reliably access real-time data, customer records, inventory systems, compliance documents, you've got a system that can't actually function in the real world. And the fourth layer is evaluation and monitoring. You need continuous testing loops and cost optimization mechanisms built in from day one.
Speaking of costs, that's a real concern for enterprises. How are Finnish companies actually optimizing costs with these multi-agent systems?
They're treating it like any operational system, measuring cost per transaction, tracking which agents are most efficient, and identifying unnecessary steps. But beyond that, multi-agent systems themselves create cost advantages because they can run specialized, smaller models instead of one massive general-purpose model. A small domain-specific agent might handle 80% of tasks at a tenth of the cost compared to throwing every problem at a large language model.
That's smart right-sizing. Now, we can't talk about Helsinki and 2026 readiness without addressing regulation. The EU AI Act is the elephant in the room. How does that shape what these enterprises are building?
It's absolutely central, and honestly, it's a competitive advantage for European companies if they get it right. The EU AI Act requires transparency about how AI systems make decisions, particularly for high-risk applications like financial services and hiring. Multi-agent systems actually help here because you can audit individual agent decisions, understand the chain of reasoning, and document the orchestration logic.
So compliance isn't just a checkbox, it's actually embedded in the architecture.
Exactly. Companies that build governance and compliance thinking into their agent mesh from the beginning will deploy faster and with more confidence in 2026. Those treating it as an afterthought, they'll be redesigning systems mid-production. We've seen real examples. Banking and logistics firms in the Helsinki region have reduced manual intervention in processes like customer onboarding and supply chain auditing by 60 to 75% using agent mesh systems. But they did it while maintaining full auditability for regulators.
Those are remarkable efficiency gains. What's the organizational side look like? Because moving from monolithic AI to multi-agent systems probably requires different skills and team structures.
Massive shift. You're no longer just hiring data scientists and ML engineers. You need orchestration specialists who understand workflow design, domain architects who can map business problems to agent capabilities, and people who understand regulatory frameworks. You also need leadership, what EtherLink calls an AI lead architecture role. Someone who ensures that the multi-agent system actually aligns with strategy, not just technical trends.
That's the governance layer you mentioned earlier. It's not sexy, but it's what determines whether you have a working system or an expensive technical experiment.
Right. And here's the thing, 2026 is not far away. Organizations that haven't started thinking about agent mesh architecture and multi-agent orchestration are basically deciding not to deploy these systems competitively. The learning curve is real, the compliance landscape is complex, and successful implementations require architectural discipline from day one.
So what's the practical starting point for a Helsinki enterprise listening to this? Where should they begin?
First, audit your current AI initiatives. Are you running isolated chatbots or models that could genuinely benefit from orchestration? Second, map your high-impact, high-volume processes, the ones where cost savings or speed improvements would matter. Third, and this is crucial, bring in architectural thinking before you touch any tools. Define your domain model, understand agent roles, and document compliance requirements. Only then do you evaluate orchestration platforms.
Architecture first, tools second. That's the philosophy that separates viable implementations from costly failures. Sam, what do you think the competitive landscape looks like by 2026 for organizations that get this right versus those that don't?
The gap widens dramatically. Organizations with orchestrated multi-agent systems will be operating at lower cost, higher speed, and more reliable compliance. Those with isolated AI tools will look increasingly inefficient. And in regulated sectors like financial services and healthcare, companies without architected governance will struggle to scale. It's not hype, it's a genuine structural advantage.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, and I know our audience wants to go deeper. The full article on Helsinki's 2026 Readiness Framework, with detailed implementation patterns, compliance strategies, and real case studies from Finnish enterprises, is available on etherlink.ai. You'll find frameworks for assessing organizational readiness, cost optimization strategies, and everything you need to move from pilot to production. Sam, thanks for breaking this down.
Thanks, Alex. This is a pivotal moment for enterprises willing to think differently about AI deployment. Those that do will be the ones defining the next phase of this technology.
That's EtherLink AI Insights. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.